Let's bring in House Speaker Mike Johnson. He joins us right now with reaction. Mr. Speaker, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning.
We were just talking about how ever since the verdict, a lot of money has been coming into the Trump campaign. And I was just reading in Punchbowl that the National Republican Congressional Committee, you guys raised $300,000 last night, which eclipses only the day you were elected speaker, and you raised $175,000. So obviously, angry voters are motivated voters.
They are, and there's good reason to be motivated, of course. I mean, this entire thing is absurd. I'm a lawyer. I was a litigator for 20 years. I was in court with President Trump a few weeks ago to see this for myself. What happened there was outrageous. And you're right, the American people see it. This is a purely political exercise, not a legal one. And everybody knows that. They know intuitively that it's wrong, and the people are outraged. I'm in one of those swing states today. I'm in Ohio and Michigan today. I'll be in Illinois tomorrow. I've been in, by the end of this week, we'll have been in 115 cities in 29 states. And I'm telling you guys, something is happening out there. People see what is going on. They see that the Democrats are so desperate because President Trump is crushing Joe Biden in the polls. They see the Democrat Party and the left so desperate to stop him that they'll risk the destruction of our entire legal system to do it. And that is not hyperbole. That's what's going on here. We broke records on our fundraising platforms last night. We'll continue to do that. We even set up a new website. Go to supportdjt.com, because that's how us in Congress, members in Congress, are going to help stand with him and defend this and make sure the right verdict is rendered November 5th. That's the American people's verdict.
So, Mr. Speaker, if I could get you to put your legal hat back on, not as Speaker, but how does this play out? I mean, you got the former president. He's going to appeal this. Do you think that this is going to happen before the election? Most analysts say it's not. Do you think that the Supreme Court has a duty to step in, since this will impact the election? I know we want to act like he's just a normal guy, but he's a leading presidential candidate. The voters should know what's going to happen here. So what do you see playing out in the legal system?
Well, there's a lot of developments yet to come, but I do believe the Supreme Court should step in. Obviously, this is totally unprecedented, and it's dangerous to our system. I mean, we've all discussed this before, and y'all talk about it all the time. This is diminishing the American people's faith in our system of justice itself. And to maintain a republic, you have to have that. People have to believe that justice is fair, that there's equal justice under law. They don't see that right now. And I think that the justices on the court, I know many of them personally, I think they're deeply concerned about that as we are. So I think they'll set this straight, but it's going to take a while. You're right. The process takes a while to play out. The Democrats know that, of course, and they're dragging it out. That was the whole objective. They want to try to bankrupt Donald Trump. They want to diminish his credibility and go after his character. They wanted to keep him off the campaign trail, which they were successful in doing for many weeks. And now they want to call him the convicted felon. This will be overturned, guys. There's no question about it. It's just going to take some time to do it.
Right. Go ahead.
Thanks, Brian. In the meantime, the sentencing date is July 11th. That's after the first debate. So the two candidates will debate. Then there's going to be the sentencing date. How's that going to affect the RNC? What if he has home confinement? He can't go? Does the convention still happen? Does he zoom in on the screen? How does he campaign? If he goes to prison, what does that look like? Will he be in prison with Secret Service on Election Day?
We're in uncharted waters, right? Obviously, there's no prohibition against him being elected president, even if he's confined somewhere. Right. But I certainly hope that doesn't happen. There's lots of discussion. We talked about it all last night. There'll be more discussion today about how we might adjust things in the schedule and all of that. But I'm going to tell you what will happen. I predict this will increase turnout on our side. He will win decisively. He will become the next president. He was already, as I said, crushing Joe Biden in the polls. I think as this plays out and people get more and more frustrated about it, I think it will help us, and that huge enthusiasm gap that already existed between the Trump and Biden campaigns will be even wider. People now see Donald Trump as a symbol of something. He's more than just an individual. He's a symbol of fighting back against this government corruption, the deep state, the bureaucracy, and all the rest. And we need his leadership in the White House now more than ever.
I mean, just seeing for the last 5-6 weeks, everything just stopped. Everyone's watching. It becomes the #1 story in big and small towns across the country. You wonder, the other 3 cases, the other 3 indictments, will they see the light of day? No one can say for sure, but we expect at any time the Supreme Court to rule on immunity. You have such a rich legal background. What should we all be looking for there? I know what you're hoping for. What are some of the rulings they could have?
Well, look, I do believe that the court needs to address that clearly. We have to set a standard here. There's a really important principle of immunity for a commander-in-chief. I mean, that's always been part of our legal tradition, and it makes good sense. You can't have somebody sitting in the Oval Office worried about some rogue prosecutor somewhere, some Soros-funded DA or some lawyer that's going to come after them for their decisions. And so that principle needs to be made concrete and needs to be expanded. I think this court will do the right thing because they see the abuse of the system right now. And that's the greatest peril here of all at the end of the day. This transcends even Donald Trump. It's about whether or not the people believe in our institutions, our system of justice. There's nothing larger than that in our system.
Right. And we were talking to Mark Penn, the very famous pollster, a little while ago, Mr. Speaker, about how this is going to boomerang on the Democrats. But nonetheless, even though it looks like it's going to boomerang and come back to haunt them, every day, every minute they can, the campaign is going to refer to him as Donald Trump, convicted felon, right up until it's overturned on appeal, if it is.
Yeah, and they'll still say that after the appeal, I'm sure. That's what was the whole objective of this thing. But I'm telling you that the people see right through it. I've been all across the country, north, south, east, west. Doesn't matter whether I'm in a blue state or a red state. People are disgusted by this. They see exactly what's happening. Old charges, a tainted judge. I mean, think of it. In the last couple of weeks, they've been apoplectic. They want Justice Alito to be recused from, future cases and proceedings because his wife flew a flag at their house. This judge on this case in Manhattan was an open Biden supporter, an open, activist, a political activist, and no one cared about that. So the double standard is clear. Everybody sees it.
I was watching Alina last night, one of the attorneys for Donald Trump, and she said when the verdict was read, he had to put his hand over his mouth, and she said she suspects it's to hide a smile. What's your reaction?
I wouldn't doubt it. Look, I told you I was there on the ground. I saw that Banana Republic trial going on. These are the things that you expect in third world countries, not in the United States. That should never have happened. That judge should never have presided.
So Andrew Weissman, who ran the Mueller probe, said he has a man crush on the judge. And he thinks that he also recommends that the president get prison because of his violations and the way he talked about the judge. Your thoughts?
It's incredible. The gag order, all of it was, in my view, an unconstitutional restriction on his free speech. I mean, he's the nominee, the Republican nominee, one of the major political parties in the country, running for president. You cannot do to him what they did. It shouldn't have been allowed. None of this should have gone forward, and I think the people see that. They see right through it.
Can I ask one more question? Sorry, you go ahead.
No,
I've asked two already.
No, go ahead.
I just want to know from a faith perspective, Speaker Johnson, what can you tell our country who's disappointed in this ruling and worried about the future?
Look, I was with some big crowds here in three different cities yesterday in Ohio, and I told them all the same thing. Keep the faith. Look, I'm absolutely convinced. Reagan used to remind us, we are the last best hope of man on the earth. He was quoting Lincoln in that regard. We have the best system, and even though people try to corrupt it, it is worth preserving. And I genuinely believe, Ainsley, that God's going to allow us another chance. We're going to be able to fix this. November 5th cannot get here soon enough, but I'm very bullish on that election cycle. I think the people are going to return us to common sense by putting us back in authority.
We'll finally find out if God's a Democrat or Republican.
This is true.
So wrong.
I heard independent.
So wrong.
We'll find out.
We still have a process.
I don't think he cares about the party, but he does care about the principle.
That's
care
exactly
about
right.
the principle.
Mr. Speaker, thanks so much for joining us.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.